Once again, thank you, those of you who are just joining us. My name is Jordan Ashley. I'm the founder of Souljourn Yoga Foundation. Really honored to be here with Liliana and all of our amazing panelists from all over the world today for our Practice for Peace event. 100% of our proceeds are going towards Yoga United for Ukraine. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to our incredible moderator, Liliana, and we'll have our conversation, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jordan, and welcome everyone. Good morning and good afternoon to all the participants and to all to our panel experts. My name is Liliana Bucur Cress. I'm the president of WAFUNIF, which stands for the World Association of Former United Nations Interns and Fellows, or WAFUNIF, and I'm the co-host of today's event. Besides being an alumni association for the former UN Interns and Fellows, one of the main role of WAFUNIF is to promote the work of the United Nations. And as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, the UN adopted the 17 SDGs to basically provide peace and prosperity for the people and the planet. Today's summit supports our goal to ensure healthy lives and to promote well-being for all and all ages. The UN has embraced yoga as a way to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals because of the positive effects of yoga on mind and body and all the benefits to health and well-being. As you might know, exactly 7 years ago, on June 21st, the mission of India at the UN adopted, together with other countries, other missions at the UN, UN Yoga Day. So June 21st became an international UN Yoga Day. So we are very proud, me and myself and the WAFUNIF is very proud to be one of the co-hosts of this summit, along with the Souljourn Yoga. As you mentioned, yes, all the proceeds are donated to Yoga United for Ukraine, and an organization who helps children and adolescents with cancer affected by war. And I just want to mention here something that I think is very important, and it's to give you like a thought, and it's part of the UN Constitution. The motto of the International Decade for the Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for the Children of the World was extracted from the Vedas, which is also a source of the yoga, that says, since wars begin in the mind of the man, it's in the mind of the man that the defenses of peace must be constructed. This is just a small thought to give you an idea where maybe we should start a lot of the discussions. In today's discussions, our panel of experts will explore and we'll find out how to use yoga as a mechanism for healing, how to find relief from trauma and fear, how to use yoga for peace and community, and also how to improve our mental health and physical health, which I think is very important, take into account the times we're living these days. And also how to use yoga and movement as a way to express more joy and as a vehicle for cultivating a spiritual community. Since yoga is the perfect opportunity to be curious about who you are, I think we are all very curious to find out more about who are our panelists today. And first of all, I would like to recognize Late Label, who's an integrative oncology specialist and a health journalist based here in New York City, the sponsors for the Yoga United for Ukraine, where all the proceeds of today's summit will be donated. Late was supposed to be with us today, but and to be part of also our panel discussions, but unfortunately, she tested positive with COVID over the weekend, and she's unable to participate. We do hope she feels better, and we send her our positive energy and good vibes. Here to tell us more about Late's work with the Yoga United for Ukraine, as well as her own work, is Jordan Ashley, the founder of Souljourn Yoga. And welcome, Jordan, and thank you for the yoga session. I think we all found our own in your spiritual activity through your yoga practice.
Oh, amazing. That's so amazing to hear. And thank you. So just to share about Yoga United for Ukraine, once again, unfortunately, Lee couldn't join us today as part of the panel. So I just wanted to, or we just wanted to share a little bit more about Yoga United for Ukraine. As mentioned before, all proceeds from today's summit will be donated to Yoga United for Ukraine. In February 2022, when war broke out in Ukraine, a group of 47 yoga therapists who work with different cancer populations, including Lee, they came together to set up Yoga United for Ukraine as a fundraiser for children and adolescents with cancer affected by war. So it is in partnership with a Ukrainian organization called Tablatotchki Charity Foundation and also St. Jude Children's Hospital. And so far, they have helped more than 400 children fighting cancer escape the war with their families. So any amount of donation really does make a difference. You can also continue to donate to Yoga United Ukraine after this event. You know, there's never a deadline in terms of where your support can go. So please feel free. We'll share the recording as well with everyone, but please feel free to continue to share and to promote this absolutely wonderful and incredible organization. And I'm really just honored for all the panelists for coming together to be able to share and to discuss in honor of them. So thank you so much for that. Just a little bit about me and who I am. I'm the founder of Souljourn Yoga Foundation. We're a 501c3 US nonprofit, and our whole purpose is to use yoga as a vehicle for social activism in supporting girls' education around the world. We work on 4 continents and currently in 7 countries. And so it started off with leading service retreats. So this idea of SAVA, so partnering with on-the-ground organizations who go deep and not wide in terms of the different populations of young women who they support. And by including a $300 to $500 donation per person that goes directly to our nonprofit that we're working with, we're then able to change the donor-recipient relationship to be one of equality and not hierarchy. And so I'm really glad to be here today and to be able to tell you just a little bit about our work and what we do. And also my work has now taken me to having, a PhD journey, and I leave for Morocco on Thursday. So looking at yoga as an embodiment practice for empowerment for teenage girls in the High Atlas Mountains in Morocco. So using this idea of yoga so that it's culturally adaptable, it's malleable, it's really to serve whomever is doing it. And at the end of the day, I would love to be obsolete. And so that these young women can, use yoga as hobbies, as careers, as, potential financial betterment to create a trickle-down effect, and then ultimately as a way to support them for becoming the next global future leaders. So that's just a little bit about me. And now, yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. You're wonderful. And I think the work you're doing is amazing and so empowering to all of us, and especially to the young girls that you're outreaching when you travel in all these developing countries. So wonderful. Now, to introduce the rest of our panel, we give a warm welcome to Sarah Naomi Jones, who uses the pronouns she, they, we, us. Welcome, Sarah Naomi. Welcome to our meeting, to our panel.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a little odd not being able to see everyone, but at least I can see the other panelists, so I don't feel like I'm just talking into space. So I'm a yoga instructor and a coordinator for the Befriending the Body program at the Center for Trauma and Resilience here in what's known as Denver, Colorado. I started teaching yoga in 2016. So I started immediately after my teacher training. I went through teacher training with Satya Yoga Cooperative, which is an organization here that focuses on yoga as a healing tool for Black, Indigenous people of color. So through that teacher training, I sort of developed a passion for the intersection of yoga and anti-oppression frameworks. And so all of the work that I do is at that intersection. And so I've sought education both formally and informally. I studied formally gender, women, and sexuality studies, Africana studies, and holistic health studies. And then that sort of really supported my day-to-day practice of really learning from elders in my community, other spiritual leaders, activists in my community, and sort of gave me language to pair with that informal study. So today I'll be focusing on the topic of yoga as a vehicle for cultivating spiritual community.
Well, thank you. Thank you for introducing your work. And I think it's wonderful that you're outreaching to the Black, Indigenous, and people of color, which I think it's so important. And kudos to you, and keep up the good work. The next panelist in our event is Ashley DeLeon, who uses the pronouns she, her. Welcome, Ashley. I think you're on mute.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Welcome to our event. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing here in New York City? And not only.
So I live in New York City. I live in Brooklyn. I am a Pilates instructor. I've been teaching for over 16 years. And my specialty is teaching students how to reach their movement goals in a progressive, joyful, and organic way. So I do that through very somatic and process-based teaching. I owned a Pilates studio for 9 years in Manhattan, and I closed it in 2020 because I kept gaining students that were international, and I really couldn't do both. So I committed to opening a fully virtual studio so that I could be more accessible and work with more people, bring my prices down, and create a movement practice teaching style that really is about giving the mover autonomy over their experience and helping them cultivate joy from this process somatic oriented framework, as opposed to reaching some sort of end goal. So it's been pretty incredible to move virtually. I would not have done that if the world circumstances hadn't presented it in the way that I kind of needed to. And it's been so empowering for me as an instructor and my students to see both of us deepening this practice that is truly internal and within, especially because I came from a business that was very one-on-one, and now having it's kind of the paradox of having this distance has actually brought us closer, because I can reach more people and we share this very deep experience that is internal within ourselves. But because of technology, we can connect through that experience in such an incredible way. So I blend Pilates, dance, and yoga to basically create movement patterns that are expressive. And I encourage my students to be expressive and to move within a place that feels safe, but to access play and joy as the vehicle to move their practice forward, as opposed to coming at it from some sort of, if you do A, you'll get to B kind of an experience. So my focus really is using movement practice as a tool for accessing joy, both within ourselves and so that you can be a little bit more grounded in yourself to share that outward.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing us a few things about yourself. And here we are holding a virtual event where we can all be together from different parts of the world, and we can all be united through yoga. Thank you, Ashley. Now we welcome the next panelist, Christine Moghadam, who uses the pronoun she, her. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Jordan, for inviting me to be part of the panel. It's really an honor to be here. I am the founder of Corc Yoga, also known as the Traveling Mom. I built and manage a community of travelers, wellness and sustainability devotees, and responsible for creation of the world's most sustainable yoga mat all made in Portugal. Our biggest mission is to benefit the people on the planet. I'm also a global travel consultant and wellness enthusiast. I'm working on my 200-hour yoga teacher training as well. And with Corc Yoga, we sponsor and lead global retreats all over in Spain and Portugal, the UK and Greece. And we mainly host hospitality, CEOs and spa managers. One of my biggest missions in life is to give back. And I'm super grateful to be working with Souljourn Yoga, as well as I was in Morocco just a couple of months ago, Jordan, and was able to kind of see your work over there. And I'm a firm believer in strong partnerships with local communities. And I just think giving back is a great part of business. So today I will be focusing on the topic of yoga for peace within the community.
Well, thank you, Christine. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. Finally, we welcome Oya Heart Warrior, who the pronounced she, her, and she has graciously agreed to step in for Marsha Banks-Harold, who could not be with us today. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody from the UK. So my name is Oya Heart Warrior, and I'm really happy to be here. And my background is in mental health and working with women and also Black people in the community, and generally populations who don't access yoga and don't feel that yoga is for them because of often the cost, often how they look, often how it's promoted. And I'm very much about how we can use yoga as a tool to help us feel more wellness inside and share that with the world. And I'm particularly passionate about using the rhythm and the wisdom in our bodies as a way of connecting to the outside rhythms and wisdom in nature and within each other. So thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking more on this panel.
No, thank you. Thank you. So you're in London, just like Jordan. Same time zone. As you all can see, yoga is the common ground for all these amazing ladies, but not only because I think they are committed to make the world a better place. So thank you all for being here with us today, and thank you, Jordan, for organizing this wonderful event. The format of our discussion will be to present each of our panelists with questions related to their areas of expertise, and then we can open up the topic to a wider discussion with all of you. I will ask everyone to please feel free to add your questions in the chat and to let us know if you would like to hear from a specific panelist. We'll be choosing questions for an audience, the Q&A, and we'll open the floor at the end. I think I would like to start with Jordan. As we all know, we might have different spiritual practices around the world, yet a deeply powerful element, which is yoga, connects us. And can you please tell us how can we use yoga as a platform for creating peace within ourselves and also with the world around us?
Thank you so much. So for me, the word that comes to mind, and I've been reading and researching this a lot, is about decentralizing it. And I really think we need to decentralize how yoga is currently presented, especially today. There's a lot of, discussion about, International Day of Yoga and whatnot, and like what that actually means in the kind of grand conversation of the wellness world and even what wellness means. And I think it really is about decentralizing it and having it be a personal practice so that it is for, my teacher, Ali Kramer, always says, yoga is for everybody and every body. It's not going to look the same for, for anyone. We're as unique and incredible and amazing as we each are with our own, individuality and life experiences at hand, so does the physical practice of it. And then with that, also the lifestyle that comes with it. No one should have the same diet or the same belief system or the same anything. I mean, that's what makes, humanity so fascinating and so incredible, is that it's through our diversity that hopefully we're able to find more of a connection through having dialogues and discussions. And, from there, I hope, conversations about peace and love and equity and equality can then really come to the forefront.
Thank you. Yes, I think we all agree with you. And I know that you have been organizing a lot of yoga retreats around the world in different places, developing countries like Nicaragua and Cambodia, Morocco, Peru. Can you tell us, please, how all these yoga retreats, how can we use all of these yoga retreats as a conduit for changing the donor-recipient relationship?
So for me, I think for me, oftentimes I would see yoga retreats like in these destinations, and there wouldn't be any kind of, give back that was happening, or any kind of community engagement or any kind of cultural immersion that was taking place. And I think the word retreat was really, for a lot of studios and for a lot of communities, it's a way of hiding. It's a way of not engaging. It's a way of saying we're going to go and plop ourselves on this beautiful beach and like not really take in our environment and not educate ourselves and not do any kind of research about where we're going and who we're visiting and who we are going to cross paths with. And I think that's a really big disservice. And it's no secret, yoga retreats are expensive. And unfortunately, you have to, international travel is expensive, in that, you have to have somewhat of a disposable income in order to engage with this kind of travel. And so for me, I think if you are able to do that, there is no reason why you shouldn't also be able to give back, especially, for me, it's girls' education. Like, that's my heart cause. That's what resonates, most with me. And it's when we're able to include it in the price, all of our teachers volunteer. That's the only way that we're able to do it. So that hopefully it's, more of a middle market, then, we're able to raise a couple of $1,000, dollars per retreat that goes 100% to girls' education. So from that, we've helped to build dorms, open up more scholarship opportunities, school supplies, sanitary napkins, school uniforms, you name it. And so I really think in that space, the decentralization of yoga to then be a skill set that can be shared and left with those young women to then do on their own accord, if they even choose to do so, is the real power and magic behind it all.
Well, thank you. I think you're managing quite successfully to bring people together. You brought us together, and I hope you will continue the good work you're doing, and also with the yoga retreats around the world to outreach to all these young girls. Sarah, Naomi, I think we have a few questions for you as well. You mentioned in your introduction that you are passionate about teaching at the intersection of yoga and anti-oppressions framework. Do you consider spiritual health a part of or a separate from mental health?
Yeah, I think that they're two different, distinct things. And I think it's named as that, right? Like when we say yoga is about union, it's about union of what? It's about union of mind, body, and spirit. So they're named as separate things, And I think that, when I started to study the Yoga Sutras, like it's mostly about managing the mind, and that to me speaks to like mental health. Then it also goes on to talk about like surrendering to God. To me, that's talking about a spirituality. That's talking about faith. It's talking about connecting to something that is greater than ourselves. And so when I think about spirituality, that's what I'm thinking of is not religion, right? It's not like something prescribed, but it is something that is greater than ourselves.
No, definitely. And I think your work also is important. And do you think building a spiritual community, a Sangha, helps to cultivate the peace, the moment, to live in the moment of yoga, to live now?
Yeah, definitely. I think about sort of like, in my experience, right? Like my experience of when I lose my peace is oftentimes when I lose my faith. I feel like we live in a world where we are constantly told that we don't have enough, that we're not enough, we don't have enough, we don't do enough. And, you know, it's like so much of our suffering is the result of this sort of mindset of lack. And so I think when I'm able to connect to the truth of abundance, you know, we have enough. This might sound silly, but like I look outside, right? And there's like dandelions everywhere. And, you know, so a part of my background as well is that I have farmed for several years. And dandelions are really incredible medicine, right? But what's the value in our society of a dandelion versus, say, a diamond, right? Like the truth is that we actually have abundance. We actually have access to what we really need as a species, right? As humankind. And it's just being able to come home to ourselves and remember that. It's being able to remember the truth of abundance and really being able to like root in faith. You know, being able to keep the balance of faith over fear. And so I think about, yeah, if we're able to connect to that truth, then we don't have to lose our peace over a lie, you know, that lie being that there's not enough. There's definitely enough.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Talking about dandelions reminded me that I used to make honey with dandelions. So definitely it's a source of inspiration, a source of visual delightment, and also a nutrition in many ways. Ashley DeLeon, I know that you began studying Pilates in childhood to complement your rigorous pre-professional ballet training, which set you back by injuries. And then you started teaching Pilates when you were 18 years old. And basically that's when you found your pure true passion to helping others to find joy through movement. How does accessing our internal joy extend beyond our physical lives?
Thank you for the context, because that sets up my response really well. So when I was growing up, yeah, I studied ballet very seriously. It was my whole life. I didn't do a lot of the normal childhood things because I was in very serious pre-professional training and there wasn't a lot of room for anything else. And when I became too injured to continue, it was a huge, devastating moment of like my joy was gone. Right? Of like the thing that I was committed to and that brought me joy disappeared. And I started teaching Pilates and I started working with a lot of people who were injured, because as somebody who was injured, I had been through a lot of physical therapy and I had a lot of empathy that I could access and utilize for teaching. And I very quickly, despite being very young, being 18, I very quickly gathered a roster of clients who were all hurt. And it became my job to not fix anybody, right? Like I'm not a doctor. It's not my job to cure you. It's my job to help you find movement that does not elicit pain so that you can have a joyful experience through movement that's safe and accessible, meaning it's something you can return to at any time. And that completely changed my entire framework of movement and shifted it from performance to practice. And I think that, just to answer your question a little bit more specifically, is when we're able to access the greatness of that. So like Sarah Naomi's talking about the abundance that already exists within us. When we're able to move into that framework and move into this understanding of what's happening right now, me showing up imperfectly, this practice has value and is useful, and it doesn't need to be performance to be helpful. And I think for a lot of us, and certainly me included, when we're witnessing conflict, humanitarian crises, it's paralyzing. It's, especially from this perspective, it's like, what can I do? It's so overwhelming emotionally. It's very hard to know how to get involved. Returning to a movement practice reminds us that showing up imperfectly is better than not showing up at all. It reminds us that we're always in process. There's no beginning, middle, end. We're always in the middle. It's always a process, no matter how done you think something is. And that when we're able to clear the mental clutter and access this joy in a super accessible way, right? If you figure out a self-practice that's just you and a mat, or you and some floor space, you don't need anything, it's already within you. You're able to organize your thoughts, your emotions, your spirit, and you're able to come into this union where you not only feel safer to be more exploratory, to see how you can help, to see what you can do, but you're also more useful to other people. You're more organized, you're more efficient and effective. So this idea of a self-practice extends so far beyond ourselves, and we don't even have to think about these lessons during our self-practice. Just the act of accessing movement that feels good and safe does this kind of process for us. So it's unique in that it being a very introspective individual tool has huge implications beyond ourselves.
Thank you. I think I understand you very well. I used to, let's say, be a ballerina for a couple of years until also I got into fitness and yoga a little bit later. But what's the best way to get started with a movement practice if you're new or overwhelmed with how to begin?
Yeah, like I think that, there's inspiration everywhere, and sometimes inspiration doesn't actually it makes us feel kind of small, like, oh, I could never do that, right? We're talking a lot about how yoga is often presented as like a very specific archetype that is, not realistic for most of us. I always like to remind people that just breathing mindfully is a movement practice. In fact, like if you're looking to strengthen your core, so you're strong enough to move in any which way, breathing is the most efficient way to do that. So tapping into a mindful movement practice, thinking about the somatic sensation of breathing fully and deeply from different areas of your body, exhaling with force, feeling the movement and coordination of your breath is doing huge things for you physiologically, emotionally. We can get into the neurology of that. And then from there, seeing what movement feels safe and how much you can explore within one movement, right? So maybe it's tabletop, maybe it's just all fours. If you breathe in all fours, what does that feel like? If you do one movement, what does that feel like? How about connecting those two movements and listening to some music and then moving with rhythm to that? That is a movement practice. It could have two moves and you breathing, and that could be enough to make you super present and become a practice that you want to return to because it's useful and it feels good and it's joyful.
Thank you for sharing. And definitely breathing at least starts with calming your mind so you can focus on the next steps in the yoga practice. Thank you for sharing. And I would like to go to Christine. You mentioned in an interview that caring for the mind is just as important as caring for the body, as the two are very intertwined. And we all know that running a business and leading a team can be quite overwhelming. How do you cultivate a culture of peace in your business and within your team?
That's a really good question, especially in the past few years. Actually, you touched on something when you said that humanitarian crisis can be paralyzing, right? And I think we can all agree that the past few years of the pandemic and everything that's shifted has kind of altered a lot of our stresses and anxieties to a whole new level. I know it's altered mine, especially with running a team and a business. And I'm a mom of two teenage boys as well. And so I think something that I really aim for every day is to do my own breath work, first of all, and also to be transparent and to lead with humility and a lot of self-awareness, to be present. Together as a team, I'm very, very grateful to share a like-minded passion for purpose driven missions. And we are also, I like to kind of describe Corc Yoga as a family. I don't really like to say as a team, because we just work so well together, and no one's above each other. We're very transparent, and we're all very positive. And so I just feel like together as a team, I know I have a couple of my team members here as well, representing Corc Yoga, and I'm just very, very grateful and very honored to be on this journey with everybody. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think definitely you found the journey of sustainable living for the mind, body, and soul. What can you tell us about how Corc Yoga's sustainable values positively impact your community?
So our mission here at Corc Yoga is to make a positive impact in the environment, in our local communities, and provide jobs, fair wages, and make a difference in a person's mental and physical well-being globally. Seeing that the cork tree is the whole inspiration behind the brand. Portugal's cork industry provides as many as 20,000 well-paid seasonal jobs all over the country, which is higher than the average unemployment rate. And with that said, we are really proud to be partnered with a factory in the cork industry in Portugal that's over 100 years old. And this partnership has really shown us how to support families that have made the cork industry their livelihood. So with the connection between yoga and the impact that it has on our mental health, we are also committed to supporting our mental health partners in Portugal and in the US, who aim to provide recovery and rehab for alcohol addiction and drug addiction, as well as providing resources for teenagers and parents who struggle with severe mental health issues. One of the most impactful experiences that we had as a community was last year in Portugal. We hosted our first annual retreat called the Renewal. And the Renewal is the perfect blend of wellness and cultural immersion, supporting the local community, and very much an immersion of Corc Yoga's values, which is self-care, travel, sustainability, and community. And our goal for that was really to provide a safe and healing environment for everybody. And I have to say the expectation was beyond what we even imagined. I think the most rewarding was to watch, especially after the pandemic, everyone come together, to be united together, to be ready to just be in each other's company and to be present, and to create this environment for guests to come back to themselves, and really kind of release whatever they were holding. So we're really grateful to be able to support the community in this way and kind of share our values.
That's wonderful. And please continue what you're doing. Continue the good work. Thank you, Christine. And lastly, but not least, Oya, you mentioned as a mental health trainer, a yoga teacher, and a former psychiatric nurse. Can you please tell us what can we do when we're feeling anxious and overwhelmed with all the problems and tasks that sometimes on a daily basis?
Thank you. I mean, there's definitely a lot of that about in this time. And I think the way that we live, it almost creates anxiety before we even step out of the door. The way we live in the West, there's a lot of pressure on us as a species, which I'm not quite sure we have evolved to deal with. So I think anxiety is endemic in our culture, and living away from nature and rushing from this place to that place, even rushing to get to your yoga class. Like, I was trying to get to a yoga class today and there was traffic and I felt anxious. Like, this is not how I'm supposed to arrive at a yoga class. I think that's the first thing, to recognize that we live in a society that creates a lot of anxiety for us. And there was a song a while ago by an artist called Carleen Anderson, and it says she had the right to have a nervous breakdown. And I think sometimes when we have anxiety in our body, if we can bring compassion to what the wisdom alarm is, like what's going on with us first, what's out of balance, why am I feeling this way, with compassion, knowing that even if we can't quite find a reason for it, our body is communicating something, and it may take time to really see what that is. So being able to locate where the anxiety is in our body, like, have we stopped breathing? Are we breathing in our chest? Is our head spinning? Do our legs feel wobbly? Like, even locating, like, what does anxiety feel like in your body, and starting to connect with anxiety, not so much in your head as an emotion, but as a somatic feeling that you can sense in your body. And sometimes the way to deal with anxiety, if you think of anxiety like energy, like equipping us to do something, but we don't quite know what it is because it's coming from the level of body wisdom, having an opportunity to create space to maybe just move the body, like shake the body, like animals in the wild, they'll shake to deal with excess energy and to dissipate it. So before we even consider that, you know what, we need to get to some kind of state of stillness, it may be that we need to move first. We may need to shake, we may need to shout, we may need to cry, we may need to release that energy that is moving through the body, we may need to walk. And I think that in the practices that I find are helpful in the community, when people are really anxious, we generally start with movement so they can dissipate that energy, that excess energy. And from there, and we also start from a place where people can find their feet, and they might be stamping in the ground to find that connection with the earth, to find that grounding, to feel that sense of, I am connected to something which is also greater than me, which is the piece that you spoke about so beautifully, Sarah, like connected to something greater than me, like something greater than me to support me to hold this energy, to hold this feeling, that actually I don't need to hold it on my own. And not feeling that it has to look a particular way. It does not have to look pretty. Sometimes when we're releasing anxiety, it can look ugly, and giving ourselves permission to be that way. So that's all I want to say about that at the moment, because I'm aware of time. There's loads more I could say.
But since we are talking and we have you here with us, maybe you can tell us, what can we do when we're feeling low or depressed?
So the depression is almost the other end of the scale. So here there is a lack of energy. The body is depleted, and you can actually go in cycles. So from that anxiety where there's all of this energy, you can wear yourself out with anxiety to the point that there is nothing left. And you then go into a place where you need to just shut down and shut everything out, slow everything down. And in extreme states, you cannot get out of bed. You cannot get into bed, and you definitely cannot make the bed. So this idea, again, starting with that compassion, like something is happening here. I don't even know quite what it's there, but my body is speaking and saying something it's out of balance, and I am shutting down. So perhaps rather than fight that and believe I need to be this person that's not that, I can be the person I am, and at least be on the same side as my emotions as they are now, rather than being an additional thing to fight with, in terms of an additional thing that you're fighting with yourself. So acceptance, like if this is how I am right now with the depression, the first thing, like accepting this is my energy for today. So from here, where can I go? And it may be from a yogic perspective, the movements are very slow, very gentle. Perhaps you're just starting to breathe a little bit deeper, and perhaps you need to inhale a bit more, to take more in, to inhale and then pause before you let go. And maybe there's some gentle movements that happen with the wrists, with the feet, but mostly that hug, you know, that internal hug where you hug yourself and say, you know what, I am showing up the best way I can right now. I am showing up the best way. So lots of self-compassion, either in depression or anxiety.
Thank you. Thank you sharing with us your expertise and things that you have encountered during your life as a practitioner and health trainer. I think we would like to open the floor to questions, different questions from our audience. I will see if we have any questions. Let's see, I'm reading through. We have Eva Polanco who says, great class, thank you. Natalie, thank you so much again. Valdemar Prado, amazing group of enlightened ladies. Keep up the good work for the benefit of humankind. Let's see, Lindsay Glass, also very powerful words. Sarah. Stephanie Wolf, extremely moving discussion on abundance. Thank you, Sarah. Naomi, such a good reminder to mindful breathe.
I have a question for everyone.
Yes, please. Go.
Yeah, you mentioned body wisdom, and I've never heard it that way, and I'd love for you to expand on it, and then for everyone else to also expand on, like, what does body wisdom mean to them, because I think it's such a profound expression, and I would just like love to hear more, and then also to hear from everyone as well, if that sounds good.
Thank you. I think it's a really important thing that we say often as yoga teachers. We say, listen to your body and just listen to your body. And so often we don't actually recognize the signals that our body is telling us. It's a very difficult thing to really tune in to your body. And most of us generally are brought up to be quite disconnected from our body, because as we grow up, people keep saying, no, sit there, sit still, be like this, don't do this, don't do that. So the things that we do as children, when we really are listening to our bodies, tend to be ruled out by our socialization. And our experiences can compound that. So when we think about listening to our body, I think the first thing is to first slow down and begin to connect. And that generally happens when you start to shut up the noisiness of movement. So maybe moving more slowly, having a quieter place, noticing places where there is ease, where there is tension. How is your stomach doing? How is your heartbeat doing? So those little things tend to be communicating all the time with wisdom messages. Are things speeding up? Are they slowing down? Are they tightening? How are your glute muscles? How are your ankles? So often there are things that happen in the kind of survival mechanism to ready us to fight, to flight, or to freeze, which are happening and being triggered in our bodies all the time, particularly in this society. So the first thing is to recognize them. And from there, you can start to, sometimes, have you ever had that experience when your body moves you? It just suddenly your head's like, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Like so often I've seen in a yoga class when I'm teaching, people start to add and do something else. They're not even aware they're doing it, but there's a body wisdom where it's saying, go with this movement. And when you add music to that and rhythm and drum beats with that to support that natural intuition where the body says, actually, I would like to move you like this. And you may not know why, but there's a wisdom and a rebalancing and a resetting that your prefrontal cortex that does all the thinking cannot keep up with, and trust in that.
I can piggyback on that. I think what you were saying about growing up in a society that's like asking us to sit still all the time just makes me think about how much moving in a really honest way is actually quite rebellious, right? Like, so we have to sort of give ourselves permission to be like, I'm going to do what the fuck I need to do right now for myself, right? Like whatever that is, whenever that is. And I think that it doesn't have to necessarily start with movement, because all of those, all of our practices translate, you know, like what we can do in one area, then we build a muscle around being rebellious. And then we can start to like, you know, take strange body positions in the middle of meetings, and we can like own that, right? Like we can be leaders in that and we can normalize that. But first we have to be comfortable with being the person that's doing the thing that nobody else is doing, you know, because oftentimes we're gonna be the person that's doing the thing no one else is doing, because we have been trained to sit still and to be quiet, and you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think like leading with just like getting comfortable swimming against the tide, because that's what it's going to be if you're actually listening to your body in our society.
Somebody else might want to add to the question? Ashley?
Yeah, so just to piggyback on that, I speak a lot about intuitive movement, and that's a big part of my practice. And Sarah, Naomi, it's like you're talking about, we have to undo the training. So one of the best ways that I have found to help others cultivate this body wisdom is practice, but is to let go of the practice. Like, I'm going to give you some tools, and I'm going to invite you to deviate from the plan. So maybe there's a subtle structure. I think it's hard for people to get started oftentimes. So maybe there's a subtle structure. It's maybe a movement pattern that you're really familiar with. Maybe it's, just like a vinyasa, or it's a tabletop bird dog thing. Whatever it is see how your body feels when you're doing it. See what you can maybe do a little differently that feels more natural to you and isn't prescribed. Tapping into that intuition only sharpens it. And then that is a radical practice, right? Like, even in a yoga class where we're supposed to be maybe following a set of movements, deviating from those movements feels awkward at first. You feel like, I'm in a classroom, I'm supposed to behave. But if you only listen to outside voices, then you're just participating in that culture, right, that we're raised in, of being super obedient. And it stops being quite as self-serving. So this idea of an intuitive movement practice as a means of sharpening your body wisdom is really a way to tap into the wisdom further, right? I think often it helps to have a slight structure to work against, like this idea of being radical, or of being kind of against the grain, I think is actually easier than just like creating anything out of nothing. But that the more we do it, and especially for me, to answer your question, Jordan, like that has sharpened my body wisdom the most. And to go more into the idea of acceptance, like it's not working against the emotional state. And I see one of these questions over here about dealing with intrusive thoughts, like not creating someone else, right? Trying to be someone else who isn't bothered by them is unrealistic and is only going to take us further away from our body wisdom. So using the anxiety, but moving through it, using the depression, but following a movement practice that does not fight this sense of not being able to do much. So your movement practice, changing day to day, moment to moment, as a means of sharpening your intuition, I think can really in turn help with these intrusive thoughts, with the sense of overwhelm, and with the idea of being able to listen to the messages that your body is trying to send you that you can't maybe quite hear now, but the more that you engage in this practice, the louder they can become.
Yeah, and that definitely, like everything that everyone is saying, like 100% resonates with me. And I think something that I remember experiencing in my 300-hour yoga teacher, I mean, that's a whole other discussion in terms of teacher trainings and whatnot, is that I really had a hard time with this idea of having to be on the whole time and having to be kind of sparkly and shiny and like upbeat, because like that's not who I am. That's just not me. Like that's not my personality. I'm not, a super smiley human. I mean, I'm warm, but I'm not one of those kinds of, that's just not me. And so it was really powerful for me to like take a step back and say, like, this doesn't resonate with me, and like that's not who I am, and like I'm gonna lean into the fact that like I feel like shit today, and that I just want to like wear a hoodie and like listen to the Smiths in the corner on my iPod, because it was when we all had iPods, and be at home alone with my dog and like not talk to anyone for the whole weekend. And like I think that's okay. I think it's okay to lean into the sides of us that we don't necessarily want to broadcast to the world. But at the same time, I think if we don't open up and tell people like, yes, I'm anxious, yes, I'm depressed, like, yes, I'm angry, then it becomes very normative to then keep that behind closed doors. And I think the more that we can do to kind of lean into the body wisdom of saying it's okay to be how you are, whatever that is, I think that's where, like, to me, like real like liberation comes, like, come as you are. I remember Marsha had said that. I mean, also, great Nirvana song as well, but like, come as you are. And like, that's all you need to do.
Thank you, Jordan. We have a question, and I think it's addressed to all of you. From Stephanie, how can we deal with intrusive thoughts, worries about the world during such a scary and stressful time, especially as it impacts sleep? Who wants to jump into answering a few words about any thoughts?
I can say just very quickly, again, recognizing that there's good reason to have thoughts about the world right now, sharing them, so not holding them in and having them by yourself, being with like-minded people who perhaps also share those thoughts and those worries about the world because they're real and there's good reason to have them. Journaling can really help. So getting them outside and seeing them for what they are and having that social engagement with other people can help. And before bed, it's always nice to have maybe a cushion, have that pressure on the front body and rock yourself. Rocking can be really soothing for the nervous system. Thanks.
Thank you for your tips. And I think, let's say in my case, maybe meditation can help to alleviate all these thoughts and the bad energy that we all get during the stressful day. Looking for more questions.
I have something that I find really helpful with that actually, and that is that's when I feel really called to work with a prop. So I don't always use props in my practice. I primarily have a mat-based practice, but bringing a prop in, and it does not need to be a yoga specific prop. So it could be a pillow, it could be a ball that's around your house, it could be a yoga block, but I really find when the thoughts are so intrusive that introducing an external object that you have a little bit of challenge with, but a challenge that you can handle, can be really helpful to direct that energy, that what do I do with this really uncomfortable energy that is so present in my mind, and channeling that into movement with a prop can really help organize the thoughts so they're not so swirly. It can help redirect those thoughts that are constantly taking you out of the presence of your practice. Bringing an external object in that's tactile can just increase your somatic sensation and bring you to a more present state. And then like we were talking about with the anxiety, exhausting the thoughts, exhausting the physical being so that the thoughts can be a little bit more manageable so that we can sleep. I find that introducing the prop can really help facilitate that journey to then kind of end where you're looking to go.
Thank you for sharing, Ashley. We have another question from Jennifer for you ladies. Do you have any advice for bringing back mindful movement after taking a break for physical or mental health reasons? Any of you ladies might want to give us some tips? Jordan?
I would say be kind to yourself and know that it's however you are, like right here, right now is perfectly fine. And it doesn't, it's just to be kind of yourself and to take it day by day and to be cognizant of life happens all around us. And it's okay if you feel differently than you did, 10 years ago or even the day before. And you'll certainly feel differently in the future as well. So really just to tune in exactly what, Oya was talking about, and Sarah, Naomi, and Ashley, and just the body wisdom, listen.
Thank you. Yes. Oh yeah.
I would also suggest, if you're going to be in a group class, going for a really gentle class, maybe something which is restorative yoga. So that kind of, piggybacks on what Jordan's saying, like be gentle with yourself, because there are so many different types of yoga, and something which is kind of a slow flow. So you can take time to get back into it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Ashley.
One of my favorite tips for this also, when the motivation is a tricky factor, music can be incredibly motivating because it brings us into this kind of intuitive movement state. And so no disrespect to teachers, but one of my favorite things to do is to join a class virtually, but not listen. So just listen to my own music. And then there's a visual reference. So it's a rough guide, right? And nobody's looking at you, but you can allow the music to maybe speak to this body wisdom as opposed to having to internalize directions and then think about what to do and then move your body accordingly. That I find that when I'm away from movement for a really long time, that feels overwhelming. Whereas moving my body to music with a vague guideline of just a visual reference can just be really motivating and fulfilling of that kind of emotional desire to move, but feeling a little stuck, like it's hard to get there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts, Ashley. Anyone else might want to add something before we might have to end our event today?
Yeah, I was
Yes, Sarah.
I was thinking about the times when I have like taken a break from an asana practice and thinking about how I've come back to that practice. And there's like a couple of things. Like I think that and I feel like it almost becomes cliche, but I feel like having a community where you can do those things together is really, really helpful, because we're social creatures. We don't like doing things by ourselves that much, you know, like, yes, we need our alone time. Believe me, as a Virgo, I highly value my alone time. But you know, it can make it fun to have a community where you can do that. And I know that that's not always easy to access because of a lot of different reasons, you know, like for myself, finding a community where I could practice yoga was not easy. Going to a yoga studio did not feel like an accessible means of like accessing community for me. And so, you know, looking for the spaces and the places where you are able to connect with people in a way that feels really good to you can be helpful. And then, like Ashley's whole thing is all about like, you know, fun. So it doesn't have to be on a mat, you know, it could be going for a hike. It could be playing with, you know, like making an intention to like run with your dog or whatever the thing is, just to get the body in motion again. And then from there, you can, you know, start to say, okay, now that my body is in motion, I want to invite more, you know, asana practice in, or now that my body is in motion, I want to invite more dance, whatever the thing is. So.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I'm a Virgo as well, and I know that Virgos are very meticulous and organized, and they are on time. So I know we are 3 minutes over 1:30. So I don't know if we will continue or we should stop very soon. Jordan, you might want to tell me what should we do.
I think that's I think Sarah Naomi's sentiment about fun is like such a great way to end the conversation for today. But I hope that this is the first of many in terms of collaborations and discussions that we have. And just thank you everyone so much, all of our amazing panelists and our moderator, Christine, Liliana, Sarah, Naomi, Oya, and Ashley for coming today and bringing your knowledge and your expertise to our Practice for Peace event, and for all of the attendees for coming and supporting as well. Once again, all the proceeds for today will go to Yoga United for Ukraine. Please continue to put the word out about the amazing work that they're doing. And please stay tuned as well for more events and discussions as well. And to follow and to find out what everyone is doing as well, and all the incredible work. Like, I feel beyond humbled just to be here with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you to all the panelists, to everyone who attended today. Thank you for organizing this and bringing us all together. So thank you for your time, effort, commitment to be part of our event and to celebrate yoga on such an important day, June 21st, the UN Yoga Day. I encourage you all to continue to do the good work you're all doing, and to to practice yoga, meditation, and all these spiritual activities. And why not practice karma yoga and give back to yourself while giving back to others. And I would like to end with a quote that I have here. You might not be able to control the world, but you might learn how to control your inner world through yoga. So thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye.